Thank you so much. I want to make sure I wasn't muted. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are 2 minutes out. We are going to get started just a little bit after 1 o'clock. So please just enjoy getting into the room and looking through our directions on the pre-roll slide. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. There are still people coming into the room, but we are going to get started with our event today. Thank you for joining us for today's event celebrating our amazing winners of the grants provided by the Booz Allen Innovation Fund. The COVID crisis has been a tragedy for many and challenged all of us in different ways. However, for many, that challenge has been a catalyst for innovation and impact. We are excited to showcase some of this amazing for you today, as well as examine how technology is reshaping how we are planning and preparing for health crises of the future. A few things to keep in mind. Please keep yourself muted during the event. If you have any questions, please chat to BAF support in the chat. There are a couple of them there. And now I would like to introduce you to the chair of the Booz Allen Innovation Fund, Nancy Laban. Thank you, Nancy.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nancy Laban. I am a co-founding board member of the Booz Allen Foundation and the Chief Legal Officer for Booz Allen Hamilton. Thanks for joining us today for an engaging conversation around the intersection of innovation and impact, featuring the Booz Allen Foundation's COVID Innovation Fund grantees, as well as some fantastic speakers. The Booz Allen Foundation was formed in 2017 as an independent 501c3 tax-exempt organization. It serves as a convener of diverse stakeholders from the private, public, academic, and social sectors to solve challenging social issues through innovation and technology, and to build community resilience from the ground up. Back in April, the Booz Allen Foundation established a $1 million innovation fund with the goal to encourage nonprofits, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, innovators at colleges and universities, startups, and small businesses to improve COVID-19 relief efforts and make a difference by harnessing the power of data, technology, and diverse intellectual capital. We invited individuals, teams, and organizations to submit applications outlining their ideas and proposed projects for building lasting community resilience. We received nearly 3,000 applications from all 50 states and Washington, D.C., and are excited to be joined by the 21 winning teams today. These grantees are a mix of nonprofits and for-profits that all have something in common. They are creating truly groundbreaking solutions that address a wide variety of needs, like providing relief to vulnerable populations, creating new innovations in PPE, developing more accurate COVID testing, addressing mental health issues, and much more. We will hear from the Innovation Fund's winning teams in a bit. For now, it is my pleasure to introduce speakers for our first round of lightning talks. Since the outset of the pandemic, the CDC Foundation has been working tirelessly on the front lines to address the pandemic using innovation and collaboration in ways never seen before. For sharing and securing data to developments in medical technology and the way it's distributed, the pandemic response is making us reimagine what is possible. Earlier this year, Booz Allen Hamilton committed $1 million to the CDC Foundation in order to help support this work. We are thankful for the critical work of the CDC Foundation and to be joined by its president and CEO, Dr. Judy Monroe. Joining Judy is Lizelle Tanglau, a journalist focused on innovation and also a Booz Allen Foundation Innovation Fund winner with the Caretaker Project, a virtual COVID-19 help desk with the goal of providing reliable and discrete information to those in the Filipino community, meant to address gaps in information that may be fueled by cultural norms. Thanks for joining us, Judy and Lizelle.
Great to be with you.
Thank you, Nancy. Dr. Monroe, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So the title of our fireside chat is COVID as a catalyst for innovation. So to level set, I'd be curious, like, how would you define innovation? I think for a lot of folks, the perception is innovation is something that has to be completely new, as opposed to something, building upon something that's already there. So I'd be curious if we can start our conversation with that.
No, that's a great question. And, when I think about innovation, I think the starting point is you have to ask the right question and you have to focus on the right problem. But that innovation to solving that problem might be something that's just connecting two parts that have never been connected before. They may already exist. They may be something really simple. And I think with COVID, we've seen some looking back, pretty simple innovations, right, to help stop the spread of the virus. When you go to the grocery store now, we have clear panels between trying to protect the cashiers and so forth, where they get the plexiglass. We've seen innovations in transportation and our airlines and so forth. So innovation can actually doesn't have to be the high tech always, although that many times is what we think about innovation. But I think it's really trying to solve that right problem.
And what areas of innovation are relevant to improving our public healthcare system?
So that we could take all afternoon to talk about that. The public health is so broad, right? But in this, particularly with COVID, what we've seen, the big areas are data, as you can imagine. Communications is an area that we don't always think about, but boy, we really need innovation in communications. We've needed even just in relationships, right? I mean, folks have been isolation. How do you make sure that folks aren't getting depressed and the mental illness and things that come from just isolation? We have seen during COVID, both young and old, it's been rather tragic, right? With increased suicides and things like that. So we need to think about those issues, as well as, all the way to vaccine technology and high tech.
Yeah, well, definitely, I do have some questions about the latest news with the vaccine a little later, but as you know, like COVID-19 is such a fast moving situation. I'd be curious, like, what are some new innovations you've seen stemming from COVID-19?
Yeah. So, in the starting point with COVID, I kind of think of it as the phases of COVID that we've been in. And so in the beginning, we had just a few cases, and a lot was focused on quarantine. How do you, just simple innovations to assure that like a homeless population can be in quarantine safely and those kinds of things. Innovations in food delivery have been really important in just education in general, because those are important to public health. But then we needed testing, right? So we've seen lots of innovation around various types of testing that have been coming out, but it goes beyond just having the test. How do you deliver the test? So we've seen drive-throughs, right? We've seen, folks have talked about home testing. I mean, you've got to make sure that it's user-friendly. We've seen innovations then. When you think about the testing, there's how do we let people know that they have in fact been infected? And one of the big ones that has come about is exposure notification. Apple and Google team, so that was innovative, right? Apple and Google came together and then did this API for free to unlock what was in all of our iPhones. But then that meant working with public health in ways they hadn't worked before, working with states, be able to really unlock that innovation, to be able to have folks. So if you're in a Starbucks and your phone then would talk to another phone, basically, a few days later, someone tests positive, you get notified that you had an exposure. So it's pretty amazing. Contact tracing, there's been lots of technology, a lot of apps. Oh my, that just unleashed all kinds of technology and innovators. And so it's been a number of things. And then I would even say, what's fascinating is the innovation in philanthropy. I mean, we're an independent nonprofit to support CDC, but we saw some really innovation around philanthropy especially in the spring. So, there was like Saturday Night Seder, all done virtually from people's homes. And in this case, it benefited the CDC Foundation. So we were really tuned in, right? But there have been sporting events that have supported a number of nonprofits, again, in this virtual world. Music, all the way from country music to jazz, comedy, cause marketing. One of the things that a lot of innovators have done is they've learned how to make masks and doing all kinds of styles of masks. Some of those have actually done that to benefit philanthropy. So a portion of their proceeds have gone to help with the response. So it's pretty exciting to see all the innovation.
Yeah, it's amazing how there's so many different, how creative people have been during a time of, essentially crisis, but just how innovation can just come out of that as well. So, you work in a space between public institutions and the private and philanthropic sectors. How is each sector best utilized to make an impact around innovations for the greater public good?
Yeah, an example of that would be with contact tracing, right? So private sector has tools and can move at a speed many times that government is challenged to move quite at that speed. But we can't, if you really want to have the public good, you've got to have public health at the table working together. So we've seen through COVID, new relationships just exploding between private sector and the public sector, which is a really positive thing, because the public sector brings, one, they know what's possible within regulation. Now, the other thing that has spurred innovation, though, has been some of the regulatory things that have been lightened during this time. So for telemedicine, that's just like exploded. But public health brings the understanding of the communities, some of the challenges to reaching some of our hardest hit communities, those that are at highest risk. That's super important. And then it's important to have business with their speed and their technology. And when they come together, it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and so I guess how do we, advance innovation and commercialize it for like public health needs?
Yeah, that's a really important question. So CDC actually has an office that they've had for a while for tech transfer, where like a private company or academia, the innovation might come from CDC and the scientists. Maybe they're working in partnership with academia, and then they've got a tech transfer office that works to commercialize that and put it into the public good. And then, then we need innovation around funding and financing sometimes to assure that everyone is has the advantage of the new technologies that come about.
And you mentioned vaccines a little earlier, so I wanted to get into that because obviously that was the top news in the news cycle yesterday. So I'd be curious, with the news with Pfizer and a couple of other pharmaceutical companies that are working rapidly to find a vaccine. I guess I'd be curious off the top, like if you had anything you wanted to talk about around that area, and then further, I'd love to kind of talk about just, what are some innovative ways that maybe the CDC Foundation or folks within that space are thinking about reaching out to some of these vulnerable communities as this will roll out in the future. So.
Yeah, so this is really top of mind for us right now. First of all, I mean, we're really excited. I mean, we've never seen a vaccine that, developed this fast, and that was unleashing or unlocking innovation across the scientific community, pharma and so forth. So that was exciting news to see yesterday, over 90% effective. But some of our challenges are that we do have communities that don't trust vaccines, they don't trust the science. So we're having a lot of discussions about vaccine acceptance or confidence in vaccines. And there's a lot of innovation that needs to take place. That needs to be informed by the studies and doing the going to the communities to find out what their understanding of the situation is, and then putting that into creative ways to communicate back to them. So that's one of the big areas. And then the deployment, as you mentioned, I mean, rolling out this vaccine is going to be quite challenging. And our concern is that the communities that are at highest risk may have challenges accessing the vaccine. So we're working with lots of folks on the ground, all the way from how do you use social media to the common good? How do you use the networks of people and the community-based organizations? Talk about unlocking. We really need to unlock all of our community-based organizations and the trust, because at the end of the day, this really is fundamentally the trust that is needed for the acceptance of the vaccine. And then there's just the other part of this vaccine is that it's going to be in 2 doses, and it has to be at a really cold, there's a cold chain here. So technically there are some challenges that are going to require innovation as well. And CDC is working on some new apps and some new data systems to be able to track. It's quite exciting, the innovation that's coming around the technology that can be applied to rolling out the vaccine as well.
Yeah, so I guess I'd be curious, like what advice would you have for other folks that are also trying to think about other solutions around this? Obviously the vaccine's the next phase in this as we kind of go through this pandemic. I mean, I'm wondering, is there other lessons in the past in other, either similar, smaller, health crises that we can look to serve as a way, as a reference point as we think about, innovation and what that looks like moving forward?
Yeah, again, I go back to innovation can be, a whole spectrum. So it can be simple, and sometimes those are the best solutions, all the way up to high tech. But my advice, if you're wanting to solve public health issues, and whether it's the vaccine or other, to collaboration is everything. And so I think it hinges on relationships, reaching out to your local health departments, state health departments, schools of public health, to again, understand, are you solving the right problem? I've had lots of situations where once we've convened communities, we thought we were coming in trying to solve the right problem, and we found out that wasn't at all what the community was worried about, right? So that's crucial. That's my best advice I can give, is make sure you're solving the right problem for the community that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the top, it's like it's crucial to try to understand like what is the right questions to ask. And sometimes for people that are kind of trying to figure out how to solve a problem, like what has kind of helped, what have you seen in the past that has helped kind of figure out like what should I be asking when maybe that's not exactly I should be, you know, like kind of helps.
Yeah, I think that goes, some of that is the formative research, like with focus groups help a lot, right? I mean, and making sure that whoever you're trying to help, that you've given them voice, you've given them the opportunity. And so that's super important. And sometimes what we've seen is it's a little challenging sometimes when the outsiders come in to try to get to the root of that. So enlisting the community, enlisting the trusted people in the community to even ask the questions of the community so that you're getting the right interpretation and the right understanding of what that is. Because what I have seen over the years where there has been innovation and there are times that, you know, you may have a super solution, but it doesn't have the uptake. If folks either don't trust it, they can't afford it, it's not user friendly. You know, there are all those aspects to any kind of innovation that if you really want it to go to scale and may have a greater impact.
And what are some of the challenges you think that folks should be, you know, be aware of the next couple months, even in the next couple of years, you know, as this is not going to be, you know, this is going to be with us for a while. So I think, you know, what are some things that, you know, people should be, you know, should be aware of, you know, and kind of other challenges ahead?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So one of the things I do that I'm really concerned about is pandemic fatigue. So anyone that can come up with innovative ideas for how to overcome the pandemic fatigue, because we're going to have masks for a long time. We're going to need the social distancing. I mean, you know, even though the vaccine, we're on the threshold of that, it's going to take a while to roll it out, to have the uptake. And so, yeah, we're looking at the next year of really being, our life being different. And that doesn't mean the economy can't be open if everybody will follow these behaviors. That's one of our challenges that we need to also overcome. It's not just vaccine hesitancy, but folks that resist wearing the mask, right? Or resist doing the social distancing. I mean, we got super spreader events that have taken place. And right now we've got a major challenge in the United States with the spread of this virus. So those are innovations. And again, those are either communications or behavior changes. Those are super important. And then you mentioned, you know, our at-risk communities. We do need more innovation around, we've got folks that have lost their jobs. You know, we've got the schools trying to do hybrid, some of them home or whatever. I think we've got to ask again those right questions and understand the impact that all this disruption has had. And then what are the innovations that can mitigate the risk and maybe take us to another level. And then I would say, you know, we've got the pandemic, but, you know, we have climate change. We have some looming issues that are really existential threats to mankind. And so we need to unlock the innovation that's occurred with COVID. We need that to stay on fire. You know, this has like been the burning platform. We need to keep that going, looking at all the social issues, the equity issues, learning issues, mental health. It's pretty vast.
Yeah, so that would have been my next follow-up question. Like, how do we keep this sustainable? Like now that we've got, you know, essentially the spark has been lit and people are out and like being innovative and coming up with these really creative solutions to some of the biggest problems around COVID. So how do we keep that going and making sure that, you know, maybe using this as a template for other things that may be coming down the pipeline and building that community resilience? Like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know. I love that question because it kind of is a cultural shift, right? I mean, not that we haven't had innovators, but to make it actually the culture that we want to unleash innovation from everyone that because these are big problems that need everyone. I think today's event is a great example of how to keep it going. And I congratulate the 21 teams that won. And my hat's off to the Booz Allen Foundation and the innovation. It's fantastic. I think that's one way to do it, is to shine a light on it, celebrate it. And then I think we probably, if you think of it systemically, we need to think about getting this into our schools, our colleges. I mean, to think of all the institutions. So employers can do it, but also our schools, and really unleash it in a way that is exciting and fun, and get folks really putting their thinking caps on.
Yeah, so my last question to wrap up is obviously we're learning so much as every day something changes with this pandemic. I'm curious if there was a couple of takeaways or even one takeaway insight that you can share that you've learned so far in this whole process. I'd be curious what that would be.
Yeah, another really great question. I've been telling my team throughout all of this that we have to learn to pivot. That's been a lot of this, because as the changes come, we can't be rooted in the way we've always done things. We've got to be willing to be flexible. We've got to be willing to pivot and go with where things are going. And then the other is, I think we need an open mindset. And I think for that it's the both and, instead of the either or type of thinking. So both and, we can both attack this acute problem and we can think long-term about what's on the horizon. Let's stop the next pandemic. Let's attack climate change. I think it's a really open-minded, kind of almost keeping opposing views at the same time in your mind would be part of what I would advise folks to do.
Yeah, because sometimes it's like, it's so much, we're trying to solve for everything, but sometimes, it's just a great reminder that you can have such a big impact in just like, even just one part of this bigger puzzle. So
that's right. And we're all in this together. That's the big message.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm so excited to be part of also this grantee cohort and just seeing all the amazing innovations that people have come up with in trying to address this serious health crisis that we're all going through. And I think you hit it on the nail. It's just sometimes it's good to be reminded that we are all in this together. And if one of us finds something, it helps all of us in the end. So.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations to you, and thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you both so much. Thank you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Lisa. We really appreciate your insight and everything that you brought here today. So thank you for joining us. Your time is much appreciated. At this time, we would like to share with you some of the amazing innovation that was selected for the COVID-19 Innovation Fund grants and how they are driving impact and purpose into their day-to-day work. Here is our first group of grantees.
Simulations VR is reimagining how certified nursing assistants, or CNAs, learn clinical care. During the pandemic, nursing homes where they usually learn their clinical skills on rotation have been closed. They're closing their doors to student rotations, and so students are left in the lurch without a lot of established ways of learning how to translate what they learn in the classroom into the delivery of care to older adults. I believe our impact will be to affect the quality and the nature of education for this workforce right away, like in January and throughout the year.
A program to help put people back to work and also keep the virus level down. The coronavirus pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on communities of color, their older adults, people with low income households. They're all experiencing worse health outcomes because of COVID-19. We're already in the process of recruiting the first 20 members for our first cohort, and they're going to train through the Bloomberg Institute of Health at Johns Hopkins University. We'll have a better understanding as the year goes on of the impact these 50 contact tracers are having, both in New York City and on the local economy on the Lower East Side.
Oliphant Medical responded to the current COVID crisis by creating a protective barrier closure for healthcare workers that are at high risk of exposure dealing with potentially infected patients. And the protective barrier closure provides an additional layer of protection for them because of the aerosol generated procedures that they perform. The healthcare workers that are performing these procedures are extremely stressed and fearful that they will contract the virus. We believe that this will help them to overcome those fears.
to generate a cheap and fast and available worldwide prophylaxis, in other words, preventive drug, to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 or the virus that causes COVID-19 from one person to another using intranasal drops. We are all anxiously waiting for the vaccine, and vaccines are the best way to create prophylaxis to prevent transmission. While we are waiting, we should find a solution that is faster, safe, that the solution can be developed everywhere. In other words, that it would be cheap enough that people can make it locally or country can make it locally, make it available for their own population.
Shield the Bay provides face shields for Bay Area healthcare workers. We focus primarily on institutions ignored by large-scale sourcing and donation efforts. Our product has become the primary face shield by nurses and certified nursing assistants in a number of Oakland hospitals. In particular, we've partnered with Highland Hospital. And by partnering with small to medium-sized local manufacturing businesses, we'll be able to scale up our production of alternative medical-grade personal protective equipment. By focusing on providing alternative human-centered design personal protective equipment to those most in need, we can keep our frontline healthcare workers protected.
People across my journey have said, come on, Komal, solving hunger, reducing food waste, building a business by taking excess food and feeding it to hungry people, that's impossible. To which I now respond with the words of the late and great Muhammad Ali. Impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. We cannot tolerate a world where we waste 3 times more food than there amounts to feed. We will not tolerate it. Now, with a group of people banded together, we can rid the world of one of the most unnecessary, solvable problems, the world's dumbest problem.
The Filipino Young Leaders Program, PhilPro, our idea during this pandemic to help our community is to come up with essentially a help desk to connect our community to vital services in a very accessible way. For us, we saw immediately the impact for our community, because this is something that comes from a trusted source like ourselves, and also verified by experts in the field. So we felt our THIO help desk will leave a lasting impact even beyond COVID-19.
I'm from the Maps and Robots project in Boston, Massachusetts, and our idea is to help boost space maps by teaching small sailing businesses and businesses to do robotics and fabrication. The audience impact we're looking to have is to help ameliorate issues of map shortages in the Boston area, especially in vulnerable communities where a lot of our small businesses do space. In the longer term, we also want to help with technology providers that often happen with technology, and specifically something that automation and robots often do some additional jobs, but we want to demonstrate that essentially when they're made accessible to people, they can help create.
My device, which is in development currently, will be able to detect SARS-CoV-2 virus in the wastewater in our poo, closer to the end user. So, well, right now we're testing at the wastewater facilities and some more controlled locations. I propose bringing that closer to the users. So looking over the next year, it's also going to allow the bio side of life, of science, to integrate with the environmental engineers, the wastewater folks, the municipal folks. This is something I find this project already, I am integrating the knowledge of the entire community.
The idea is to develop a contactless means of calling an elevator, designed to help in the transition to the new normal. But more than this, RIDE will enhance the elevator experience by using an internal algorithm to optimize ride scheduling and minimize exposure risks. We want our solution to be as accessible as it is impactful. And so we are designing RIDE to be usable for groups that struggle with technological literacy, at-risk populations, and frontline workers.
We're all waiting to get back to a normal life, and hopefully RIDE is going to bring us one step closer to that. It's going to mitigate the risks of returning to outside by limiting the number of users of elevators per ride, entirely removing the need to press elevator buttons, and reducing aggregations of people in the lobbies.
The impact of what these projects are doing is exceptional. Thank you guys for watching those first videos, and we'll have more to come. Now I would like to introduce you to Booz Allen's Chief Innovation Officer, Susan Penfield. Hi, Susan. Susan, you are muted. I'm so sorry.
I thought you guys were on mute.
Oh, you're muted again.
Sorry about that. I thought you guys were muting. Hi, I'm Susan Penfield, and I'm Booz Allen's Chief Innovation Officer. And those were some incredible videos, so thank you so much for those. I'm excited to be here today, not only to introduce you to a fantastic philanthropist who has been reshaping capitalism, but also to offer you a brief perspective on how we approach innovation at Booz Allen. So you may know us reputationally as a consulting firm, but we are absolutely a technology firm as well. And we sit at the center of our clients' missions, and we use technology to accelerate adoption of particular missions. And we serve the federal government as well as Fortune 100 commercial clients. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here with this group, well, a bunch of innovators, but when I say the adoption of technology that can power and protect critical government services has never been more important. Sharing information across our intelligence agencies to protect our country, vaccine development and distribution, clearly a priority today, and protecting our election systems. These missions matter to you and they matter to our clients. And they're the most important things that we do at our firm. Our innovation agenda is actually focused on 4 key tenets. We invest in an innovation culture, our physical spaces, and we have a comprehensive stack of virtual collaboration tools that are used to institutionalize our purpose, which is empowering people to change the world. We are purposeful and we are persistent in fostering a culture of innovation within our teams. Secondly, we invest in our talent and we try to level up their skills. Our 27,000 consultants around the world are also technologists, and they follow comprehensive learning paths to build and diversify their skills and achieve certifications. We're focused on things like data science, cybersecurity, and cloud development as career pathways. We lean in and we invest in future forward technologies as well. Capabilities we know will change the game for our government clients in the short, in the midterm, and the long term. Cloud, of course, artificial intelligence and quantum, 5G and immersive technologies are a few that we're investing in today. And lastly, we're a player in the innovation community. Certainly our foundation and the work it's doing with all of you is important, but we also say don't go it alone. This means working with and incubating technologies with a large-scale network of external partners to include tech giants like NVIDIA, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. We also work with accelerators and startups, as well as incubators like SeedSpot, Decode, Capital Factory, and Cambridge Innovation Center. So we take a holistic approach to innovation for sure, and we're excited that we were able to participate with all of you in this activity. So now let me turn to our introduction of our next speaker. The power and the impact of community to drive social impact could not be more apparent than in the life's work of our speaker, Sir Ronald Cohen. Sir Ronald is an international investor, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and social finance innovator who has dedicated the last 20 years to leading the impact revolution to achieve real social and environmental change. His recent book, Impact: Shaping Capitalism to Drive Real Change, is the premier thought leadership on how impact investing can and is changing the world. Sir Ronald will be interviewed by Elizabeth Segrin, PhD, and staff writer at Fast Company on the topic of COVID-19 impact economics. Sir Ronald and Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today, and over to you.
Thank you for having us. I am Elizabeth, and I am a senior staff writer at a progressive business magazine called Fast company. And I'm also the author of a new book called The Rocket Years, How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life. And I'm very excited to speak particularly because I've been thinking a lot about young people and their power and what the world is going to look like for them over the next couple of decades. And I think we're in this critical juncture in world history where there are several paths before us, and it's possible now for us to take a path that will lead us into a better future. So I would love to talk to you about this. The first question I have is, you know, a lot of people have been talking about this moment of crisis with the pandemic as a moment for us to reset, because everything has slowed down. Institutions have begun to crumble. There's a lot of destruction going around, but there's also the possibility for rebuilding. So I would love to hear from you, you know, what opportunities you see before us as an impact investor, but just, you know, as an innovator to rebuild in a better way in the decades to come.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Susan, for your very warm introduction. I remember Booz Allen from its earliest days, and boy, you've really built an amazing firm in past decades. Well done to you. So, Elizabeth, your book is about how your 20s affect your life. It certainly affected mine. I got into venture capital at the age of 26, co-founded the company Apex Partners, which today manages $50 billion plus of investment capital. And I think young people are once again in a historic position to make a major contribution. What COVID has done is to accelerate the arrival of what I call in my book the impact revolution. This is a revolution about doing good and doing well at the same time. But while we've always talked in terms of doing good and doing well, we're now beginning to see entrepreneurs set up business models like some of those that we've heard that just describe what they're doing, which deliver impact as they make profit. The more impact they deliver, the more profit they make. And the reason this is coming at this juncture in our history is actually our system is broken now, Elizabeth. It creates more problems than governments can tax us to deal with. And therefore, we have to change our system. And we have to change our system by bringing impact alongside profit so that companies maximize the profit they make while they maximize the contribution they make to people and planet. That's leading to massive innovation. Part of it is based on the technology revolution. The impact revolution follows, but is also built on the tech revolution. Companies like Tesla, whose aim isn't just to make money, but to make money and shift us away from polluting cars to electric cars. That type of a business model is the business model of the future. And so in the same way that technology created opportunities for entrepreneurs across every industry, impact is beginning to do the same.
I think that one, and you know, we've talked about this together before, but I think that one of the most interesting things about this shift that we're trying to make is that we're trying to rewrite the rules, and not just the rules, but the quantification of business and companies, right? And I think that what's so interesting is that for so long, profit was the main way that we measured growth, both at a company level, at an individual level, you know, but also, you know, in terms of how governments operate. We see that we believe that growth, almost at any cost, is the most important thing. So how do we rewrite that script? How do we rebuild the way that we operate at a very foundational level?
So I got into venture capital because I thought I could do good by creating jobs as well as make money. I needed to make money. My Parents and I arrived in Britain when I was 11 years old as refugees. I knew I'd have to look after my parents. But I realized that growth, which is what venture capital is all about, backing entrepreneurial companies that grow fast, actually created greater gaps between rich and poor rather than reducing them. And I began, therefore, to start thinking about how do we bring investment to those who want to improve other people's lives. And where we are today is basically seeing our system change before our eyes from risk return to risk return impact. Now, impact means improving the lives of people and improving the environment of the planet. To the extent that you are measuring improvements in education, improvements in health, reductions in prisoner reoffending, reductions in homelessness through impact investing, and that you're measuring that, that's going to be reflected in the national balance sheet in the same way that it's going to be reflected on business balance sheets. And so this transparency on impact, similar to the transparency on profit that we have, which is going to come in the next 3 to 5 years, where companies must publish accounts that show not just the profit they made, but through their accounts, also the impact that they delivered. That is also going to change our national accounting and our national priorities.
Yeah, and I think it's so encouraging that there's a lot of work that's happening right now as we speak to quantify that kind of impact, so that it's easy for us all to be speaking the same language and to be looking at the same measurements, right?
Exactly. And if I can bring it to life for our participants in this webinar, if you go to the Harvard Business School site and look at IWA, impact weighted accounts, you will see the impacts created environmentally by 1,800 companies. Now hold on to your seats. These 1,800 companies create $3 trillion of environmental damage in a single year. 250 of them create more environmental damage in a year than they make in profit. 600 of them create environmental damage equivalent to 25% of their profit. Now, when you begin to get that type of transparency, not just on environmental impact, but on diversity within a company, on the cost of diversity for communities that are excluded, which you'll find on the Harvard side. And you see the $7 billion wage bill of Intel, which superficially sounds like a fantastic social contribution, halved because of lack of diversity, equality of gender pay, and so on and so forth. You begin to understand that we really are on the threshold of a revolution now in the way in which businesses manage their affairs, design their products, and manufacture and sell them.
What I love about that approach is that it sort of quantifies as people say, the negative externalities, right? Which are, the negative impacts that these companies have, because what that means is that we, citizens or other people, we're paying for those impacts. There is a cost, and so to bring us to our last area of conversation, I would love to talk a little bit about what we can do, not as business people, but just as average consumers, as citizens, as people living, in this world. As somebody who writes a lot about consumer facing businesses, I think that one challenge is that it's such a popular conversation now for companies to talk about all the good that they're doing in the world, but it can be kind of hard for the average person to see through the smoke and mirrors and to try and figure things out, because exactly what you're saying, there is no way of quantifying it, right? Yeah. What can we be doing to be responsible as individuals for the purchases that we're making, keeping in mind that we are also paying for those negative externalities, right?
Right. So Elizabeth, we're not very far away from the time when we will be able to point our phones at the barcode on a box of cereal and find out how much pollution and how many social issues the company that manufactures that cereal is creating. And we will also be able to measure the impact on health that eating that cereal is going to have. And it's going to affect our consumer decisions. So for now, we do the best we can to find out which companies are creating harm and which companies are doing good, and we try to buy their products, and every one of us should do that as a consumer. Working for the companies that we work for, every one of us has a duty and a right to demand transparency from that company on what impacts it is creating, and to help those companies improve their impact. And then through our pension plans or our parents' pension plans, money is being invested that amounts to $38 trillion a year. And most of our parents don't have the faintest idea where this money is being invested. Let's ask the investment managers that are managing this money to tell us how much of it is going to environmental, social, and governance investing, how much of it is going to impact investing, where you measure the impact that is being created. That's going to be $1 trillion a pool of capital this year, equivalent to the whole of venture capital. So as consumers, as employees, as investors, each of us has a role to play. And as philanthropists, since we are here hosted by a foundation which is doing fantastic work, as philanthropists, we can direct our grants to organizations like those we have seen today that are trying to do good and to do well at the same time. At the end of the day, our governments, if they see us all doing that, will mandate the transparency which will transform our society and our planet. We need to do what we did in the 30s for the profitability of companies, give us transparency on it through auditing and generally accepted accounting principle. We need to do the same thing now, Elizabeth, for the impact that companies create. That's going to be the next frontier for our societies and for our planet.
I love that approach. And I think that that sort of puts a burden on us now that, you know, as we are trying to further this conversation and as we're trying to interact with brands and companies, that it's not enough for us to be demanding that they do good and that they consider, you know, things beyond profit. We need to be asking them to show us the receipts, right, and to help further this project of collecting data and quantifying it, and that's something that we can contribute to. We can help with this revolution.
Yeah, impact transparency is a new human right, Elizabeth, and we should be clamoring for it. And it will come within the next 3 to 5 years. But if governments introduce it sooner, to go back to the theme of this meeting, it'll help us emerge from the COVID crisis faster and create a fairer and more sustainable world, because we will have companies and investors trying to achieve the same objectives socially and environmentally that our governments can set, but today are unable to achieve.
Well, thank you so much. This has been an enlightening conversation, but also one that offers a little bit of hope that we can come out of this a bit stronger and better than when we started. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Humanity has made great progress, and despite all the ups and downs on the way, it's continuing to do so.
Thank you both. I wish we could have you guys continue talking for another couple hours. That was fascinating, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, Sir Ronald, and to Elizabeth, thank you both. Your insights are fabulous. We are now going to take a look at some more ways our winners are continuing to drive impact and change the world with this video of our additional grant recipients.
The University of Chicago Recover Study aims to fill one critical information gap. How many people have already been infected with the novel coronavirus? We hear often that official case counts are likely missing many mild or asymptomatic cases, but we don't know how many. Our study aims to produce the first truly representative estimates of infection rates to date in the general public. Our innovative approach uses at-home test kits for no-contact remote blood sampling, and we offer each participant a random financial incentive.
Clinicians fighting on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic using a snorkel scuba mask that is a full face cover with a snorkel on top, remove the snorkel and replace it with a 3D adapter that can be attached to a standard HEPA filter, thereby creating full face and respiratory protection for clinicians. So it'll be incredibly impactful because it will help to protect our nurses, respiratory therapists, doctors, everybody that's helping to keep our patients safe and alive during this pandemic.
We realized that once COVID-19 began to spread, that there were similarities along the streams of gun violence and COVID-19. And we realized that we had to expand our work from just being an organization that handled solely gun violence, but we had to begin to try to find a way to treat our communities at large.
We're pivoting. We're talking about doing some things that are going to also broaden our horizons, going on hiking trips, whitewater rafting, you know, outdoor things where we can still maintain social distancing, everything that we need to practice in order to keep the kids and ourselves safe.
A handheld SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 diagnostic device that can detect for the disease from your saliva in under 30 minutes anywhere in the world. Looking to be able to test people more frequently and in a more comfortable manner to get those back to work faster, those able to travel sooner, and to overall help the economy get back on its feet. We're hoping to get our device out to market as well as be able to create this in a widespread manner so that we're able to work with more people to test sooner and be proactive in their own health.
Oftentimes, you know, kids are left out of the equation of solution finding, but they're in a space where everything that happens, that's decided, it affects them. So the idea is that they don't have to wait until they grow up. They can be a part of the solution now. And we're also just giving them the tools that they need to be entrepreneurs. So they don't really have programs structured for older youth to really get involved and be able to develop something for themselves. So we want to be a positive part of the continuum of education.
To expand the use of critical personal protective equipment like this N95 mask. We do that by building what we've called the ARCA, a hydrogen peroxide disinfecting device that allows you to clean PPE for its safer use. Going to make an enormous difference in low resource settings and for frontline staff across the globe. Currently, equipment like this runs for exorbitant prices, and many staff are having to reuse dirty equipment. Because of this, people are falling ill. It's our mission to change that and to provide essential staff in frontline settings across the globe with clean personal protective equipment throughout the pandemic and beyond.
To take an invention that we created for the safe training of scent detection dogs and utilize it for training COVID detection dogs to enhance their ability to identify people with potentially infectious people with COVID-19. Every one of these TAD units represents a patient sample that the dogs have the ability to train on and gain further insight and the ability to detect COVID-19. And so this project enables not only the training, but also the eventual operational capability of these dogs to detect COVID-19.
Find a way to ensure that our kids here in North Tulsa have access to both like technology training as well as social emotional learning and to arts infused curriculum. So we wanted to be sure that in this really difficult time, all of our kids had access to something really powerful and exciting and engaging that would help them to grow as students, as individuals, and as strong members of this community. COVID-19, we believe it's as important as ever that people stay connected.
The goal is to increase and help with their social emotional learning, connect them to artists in the community, and also give artists in our community a way to connect with their community as well as work on their own social emotional learning, because it never stops.
Becky's fun idea is EndoBee. In response to the increase in violence that is a byproduct of COVID-19, survivors that are trapped at home with their abusers are facing increased difficulty reaching out for help. So Becky's Fund created EndoBee, a mobile phone application that will provide safe, silent support to survivors of domestic violence. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men are affected by domestic violence. Thus, the creation of EndoBee, this mobile phone application, its impact will be instantaneous, providing everything from legal support, mental health support, as well as in real time resources that help survivors reach the help that they need.
To go into minority communities, we're going to take our mobile mental health unit and make sure that essential workers can understand that we know that their mental health is a priority. By doing that, on the bus, we will have limited talk therapy. We will also have resources and information regarding mental health. So that way we can link them with different minority mental health providers that they can reach out to get the help that they so desperately need. Well, anything that's going to help them really zoom in on taking care of their mental health. I see people really being able to do that once they get the psychoeducation that we will be providing.
I hope you enjoyed those as much as I did. Before we move into the breakouts and you get time to interact and engage with these grant recipients, I would like to introduce you to Tony Mitchell for some final thoughts.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Mitchell, a Booz Allen Hamilton Executive Vice President and also Booz Allen Hamilton Foundation Board member. At Booz Allen, I'm responsible for our Justice, Homeland Security, and Transportation business. As Nancy mentioned at the start of our event, one of our goals for the Booz Allen Foundation is to serve as a convener. And I am so excited to see everyone together today for this important event and all of the key topics that we've covered. It's been an exciting hour, and hearing all of these different perspectives from our experts today on the role of innovation in helping to navigate some of the pandemic's most significant and pressing problems. From our COVID as a Catalyst session, we had the reminder that innovation might well be new technology like the apps for contact tracing and exposure notification, but they could also be existing capabilities. And it really begins with asking the right questions and really knowing what problem we're solving. We also talked a bit about the importance of partnerships and collaborations like public-private partnerships. From the COVID silver lining session, Sir Richard Cohen impressed upon us that young people are at a historic position to accelerate the impact revolution, doing good and doing well. We hope that you will stick around for the breakout groups to learn more from our grant winners and to ask them questions about the incredible work that they've been doing to combat the negative effects of COVID-19. In just a moment, our production staff will redirect you to the breakout sessions that you requested when you registered. This is a time to learn from our grantees, get a sense of their passion, and engage in a dialogue in smaller, more personal settings. So please feel free to unmute yourselves when you get into those breakouts. As a refresher, there were 4 themes for those breakouts: the COVID-19 prevention, COVID-19 testing, education and professional development, health, education, and wellness. Please hold onto the line for a bit while our team redirects you to the breakout rooms that you've selected. Our grantees will look forward to meeting you. Thanks again for joining us, and be well.
Thank you, Tony, so much. I really appreciate everyone's time and attention today, and that concludes the main event. At this time, we are going to move you into the breakout room so you can ask some questions. There will be a moderator in there to help you. All right, so we are going to send you off into your breakout rooms. So we hope you enjoy. Please let our support staff know if you have any questions. You can chat us. It looks like we have 16 people that are unassigned. So we will work on getting you folks into the rooms you need to go to. Everybody else should see a pop-up sending them to the room that they were registered for. And if you are not moving into a room and you would like to request a room, please let us know and we will put you in the room. So there are just a few of you we need to get over there. All right. All right. Okay. Tiffany, I'm putting you in right now. All right, Sally, education. Okay, there's just a few of you left. If you want to message me, if I've missed you, let me know. Health education. Okay. Becky. All right. All right, just a handful of you left. Sally, did you request one yet? Wilma, you guys can feel free to unmute and chat with me if you like. Wilma, I'm moving you over to health, education, and wellness. You're all set. Dr. Monica Caffey, do you have a room you'd like to go to? Raul and Camille. Camille, let's get you over. Thank you, Camille. Raul, Sally, Dr. Monica, you're my last folks if you need to go anywhere. All right, to my team, you can, yep.
This is Sally. I do not see, so I'm currently on my phone and I do not see an option to join a breakout room, but I wanted to go to the education and professional development.
Great, I'm going to send you there right now. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
Okay, to my team, if you guys want to go ahead into your rooms, I can send you if I need to. Let's get you over so you can join. Okay. Clarice switched to prevention. Let me just find you. Clarice, can you come back out of the room? Are you out of the room? I can't move you. Okay, Becky, let's see if I can figure out where you are. Becky, I don't have you as unassigned. Hi, Becky. So it's interesting. You're not showing up as unassigned to a room for me to move you somewhere. So let me just see if I can figure out how to do it. Why is it doing that, Becky? I don't know.
I have another staff person already representing Becky's fund, but I know.
Yeah, I'd like you to be in there. Shoot, it doesn't show you as being in the main area. Becky, why is it doing this? All right, let me just try one more thing. No, it still shows you as assigned. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to move you. Do you mind? I'm so sorry.
Of course not.
Thank you. So I have a few folks here in the room. Did you guys need to be moved into a room? Hey, Becky, it still shows that there's no one unassigned to a room. So why is it doing that? You were pre-assigned to the room. So I don't know if that's what did it.